the problem is not unique to Atlanta. This has kind of been a nationwide problem in a number of major cities all over the country, so it's not just specific to us. And that the problem has gotten significantly better over the past month or so. We still continue to have the problem that we did, but at one point we had it bad enough where they were able to take over the interstate or do some other really kind of dangerous activity. We've been able to eliminate most of that. This weekend, we saw some street racing activity, largely a group of about 175 to 200 gathered up in the Zone 2 area around the dump parking lot, which is the furniture store there. But really, they never engaged in any significant illegal activity. We were able to make one arrest there, and it was street racer related, but he's also wanted on some other more significant charges. Otherwise, we made arrests in Zone 6, another arrest in Zone 2, and all of those were for street racer-related activities such as reckless driving, laying drag, those types of charges. Over the course of the last several months, while we've been doing these details, we've made a total of 459 arrests related to street racer activity, and that's for the charges we just discussed, which were racing, laying drag, and reckless driving of some form. All but 26 people were given a copy of charges, were arrested. 26 people were given a copy of charges for one reason or another. So the 459 physical arrests is what we've made. And that's been our efforts, and it will continue to be our ongoing effort. While this problem is getting better, it's far from eliminated. We continue to get complaints from the public. So what we would encourage people to do is if you have street racer activity near you, please dial 911. That's the best way to inform us of what the problem is. You dial 911, we will dispatch the appropriate units. We have units in the city on the weekends just to deal with this problem, and we will get them over to you. That's all I have for this, unless y'all have any questions.
I spoke with some residents who are just concerned about APD's inability to chase when it comes to this problem. Can you speak to that and how you can, catch these street racers if you can?
Well, part of our assistance with Georgia State Patrol is that their pursuit policy is different than ours. But I think it should be noted this way too. Pursuits are inherently dangerous. So the problem with pursuing for offenses like this is really a low-level offense in many ways. I get it's a huge irritation, and it's, nobody wants to be living around this while they're spinning their tires and making all this noise. But we certainly don't want to kill someone in a vehicle pursuit as a result of somebody just laying drag. So we are looking at our pursuit policy currently, and there may be some changes to it, which we'll make an announcement at that time, but the changes won't allow for pursuing for these types of events.
Are there any organizers that have been arrested since the city council approved the law to hold organizers responsible?
Right. We're in discussions with the law department about how best to use that city ordinance and get it all finalized. So that conversation's still ongoing. To my knowledge, we have arrested people that are high up or seem to be the organizers of some of these events, but we'd have to go through the reports real quick and give you specific names.
I know APD said that you'd be increasing patrols. Yesterday you guys put that on Facebook. What can we expect to see? Is it in these neighborhoods, the Zone 2 where we're seeing this?
So we've seen the most significant activity in the Zone 2 space, the Buckhead area, and then coming down into Upper Midtown, there tends to be a lot. And now there's drifted a little bit over into East Atlanta. So we're trying to cover all three locations. These things happen pretty spontaneously. So all of a sudden there'll be something go out either over social media or some internal text that they do, and a whole group of people will show up someplace. So that's why I'm saying please call 911, because we're trying to track that, but it can be a little bit of a challenge. And so then once we get there, then we're able to control the issue fairly quickly. I think they now know that with the assistance of the Georgia State Patrol and ourselves, and the fact that we've been making a number of arrests, and they have a Twitter service that they put out that said, hey, they're making arrests here, that tends to disperse the group fairly quickly.
What is your take on maybe finding some kind of outlet for these people who want to race in town, like a designated area or something like that?
I don't, in the city, we don't have a place that would make good sense. I guess if they wanted to rent out Atlanta Motor Speedway or something and have a great time, have at it. But we don't really have a space that's congruent for that type of thing.
Can you talk about the penalties that they're looking at?
So these charges carry with them up to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. And then, depending on what is finalized in the city ordinance, we're looking at if we can determine that you were involved in street racing activity, being able to impound your vehicle for a 30-day period, and that would increase a mounting series of fines. So that's going to get expensive quickly, and we're hoping to deter them that way. Also remember that one of the biggest challenges that we've had in doing anything with the street racers is while we're making charges and they're going to jail, the courts are not open. So there's been no penalties leveled against these people in any way. They haven't paid a fine, they haven't had points on their license, none of that's happened yet because the courts aren't functioning. So as soon as they get up and running, this will have a bigger impact than it currently is.
What has been the reason this year that it's been more of a thing than in previous years?
Well, I thought we had some pretty serious incidents last year around it. I don't know if it's just been a cultural shift or what's going on that's made this into a big deal, but it really has been in the last couple of years that this has become a problem. And, there's no real outlet for these people have, spent a lot of money on these cars. Lots of times they've souped them up and put a lot of effort into them. There's really nowhere they can go and do anything with the car. So at the end of the day, I think these guys just kind of got together, formed a group, and that's how we ended up with this, except it seems to have gone national.
The 459 arrests, what time frame was that?
So we're reporting arrests all the way back to February, I believe. January. So first of the year.
Okay.
Is there any reason the streets that they use, they're just wider, better for,
There's been several places that they really like to go. So they organize at the dump sometimes, they organize at the varsity sometimes, although now they're not using these locations as frequently because we're there so often. The one place that they've liked to lock the street down is over there near ML King at the Mercedes-Benz Dome, and we figured out that makes for good social media pictures. So you have this car doing this burnout, you got the Mercedes-Benz emblem behind it. We've been able to stem a lot of that in the Castleberry neighborhood, and they weren't in Castleberry to my knowledge this past weekend, but it's always something new, and it's where there's enough of them that they can kind of lock down the street, do what they're going to do for a limited period of time, and then move on. It's not like they're locking down our streets and they're there for 30 minutes and we didn't respond to that. It happens fast when they do this stuff.
what has changed about the highways, the interstates? That was,
So we were able to quickly get that under control. So it got bad for one weekend. Then we had a joint detail where it was us, Georgia State Patrol, and the Clayton County Sheriff's Office. And when we pretty much ran a citywide initiative to get that under control because you can't have people taking over your interstate. So we made a number of cases in one weekend and a bunch of cars were impounded, and that seemed to help with that tremendously. And we haven't seen a significant problem on the interstate since that time.
Can you go over the charges again, and also, are these new charges that you come up with since all this has happened?
So these are just state traffic charges that have been on the books for years. There's nothing new about them. So one's racing, one's laying drag, and the other is reckless driving. And that's been the primary way that we've enforced the law for the street racing. The city ordinance that we're discussing isn't the same as this. It's got some features about impounds and being able to seize a vehicle for a limited period of time that's involved in street racing activity.
And the price tag on this?
The price tag on each potential offense is a potentially $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail.
Any more questions?
Anything else?
so, also, I think I saw the bystanders or the quote-unquote crowd, they can be arrested too, or is this been?
So people that are videotaping, that are actively videotaping street racer activity under the ordinance have the potential to be charged. But I'd need to go through that in complete detail to understand how it is. And it's one of the conversations we're having with the law department to make sure that we completely understand before we implement.
Well, how could you actually be there and not videotape?
Well, I mean, I guess some of the people are just kind of see it pop up and watch. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's people that are like standing in the middle of the street, blocking traffic to get this whole thing on Instagram or, whatever social media site they're using. And they're as much of a problem sometimes as the people in the cars.
Has anyone been hurt?
I don't think we've had any significant injuries related to this. So, no.
Real quick, can you just talk about the units you said off the top? You kind of went really quickly, SOS units, I think?
So special operations units, and it's our ACE team, which is our auto crimes enforcement team, and our HIT unit, which is our high intensity traffic team. Those are the two primary units that we're using. Then we're using some zone crime suppression units, and then anybody else. Sometimes motors is available, so we'll use motors. We use the air unit. I mean, we use pretty much everybody if they're available. Thank you.
Thank you.